Mevagissey is a picture postcard village around a beautiful little fishing harbour on the south coast of Cornwall, very close to St Austell. The prevailing wind is straight off the land, so generally conditions in the harbour are very good. It's also possible to anchor outside the harbour in settled weather because the wind is coming straight off the shore. However, this hill on the northwest side of the harbour can, on certain days, create a bit of fun for the unwary, so we're going to look at that. There are 4 visitors' buoys in a trot on the south side of the harbour. Close by is a rocky ledge which can be seen on the left of the picture here. On the day we arrived, all our wind indications said that the wind was blowing straight along the trot, so we expected a very easy day for mooring. That's not how it turned out. Also, because we're using a trot with 2 pickup buoys on it, using the lasso technique to get the buoy won't work. Forecast wind said the wind direction was west-northwest, so around about here. Air is a pretty standard fluid, and it's being acted upon by gravity, so when it hits an obstruction like a hill, it will always try to go round it. Yep, some of the air will go over the top of the hill, but quite a lot goes around either side of that hill, and you'll end up with a modified wind direction and an increase in strength. It looks a little bit like this. So with a forecast wind from the west-northwest, we're observing a wind from the west, and we think we've got lucky because the wind is blowing straight along the trot. However, there's a trap in store. In the northern hemisphere, if the wind gusts, in other words its strength increases, then it will also veer, which means the direction it's coming from will change in a clockwise direction. And this can have a dramatic effect on the wind that you perceive at sea level in the harbour itself, in the lee of that hill. When the wind gusts, it increases in strength, but it also changes direction, and now it meets the hill further round, and the air will take an easier path and go the opposite side of the hill and come in across the harbour from right to left as you sail in and pushing you straight towards the rocky ledge. Now you've got a wind at 90 degrees to the trot and a stronger wind to boot. That's exactly what happened to us, and it was only because the harbour master lent a hand that we got away with it. 2 boats later, maybe 10 minutes after we got in, another visitor gave up and went off to Foy. Even in benign conditions, some patience is often needed. This is Rob Lamb, who I believe is a sailing instructor, and he does make it look quite easy while demonstrating the patience that can be needed when using a trot. He's got a very new sailor at the helm, so let's see how they get on. Granted, they haven't got the wind gusting from their right, the wind is still blowing pretty much down the trot, but they've made a pretty good start with this. Rob knows that there's a lot of chain on the bed, which will allow that buoy to move quite a way, so he's left his bow line pretty short to start with, and this will be trial and error to give him enough room to get back and pick up the stern buoy. Keeping the line at the bow relatively short also limits the risk of being blown towards the rocks if you do get a gust and a sudden veer. Notice Rob is avoiding the temptation to rush into doing the stern buoy. Instead he's watching to see how the take-up goes on the buoy at the bow, and he'll decide whether to lengthen that bow line or go and attempt to put the stern on once he's seen how that take-up goes. With the engine in neutral while he gets his line ready, note the boat sprung back forwards again under the weight of that chain, so his helm's going to have to put it into reverse and drive it back towards the bow once he's ready to go. Note just a couple of feet too short. We'll need to lengthen the bow line a little bit. Tantalisingly close, but still not long enough. He's run out of rope on that bow line, so he's going to have to swap it for a longer line before he can have another go. Don't look now, but I think the wind's just changing. Having got his new line on, he's now able to give instruction to his helm and manoeuvre the boat back for another go. With the bow attached to the buoy, it's simply a matter of putting the nose of the boat upwind or away from the rocks on the side of the buoy and moving forwards, and the rope tied to the buoy will pull the bow back round and line the boat up as you move forward. Rob's just judging how much more line to pay out so that he can get close to that buoy without getting too close to my anchor hanging over my bow. Keeping the buoy and my bow on his port side means that they're in his lee, and the wind's going to push him back towards that buoy even if it doesn't change direction. It also means he's further from the rocks than he would be if he'd put us on the starboard side. This gives him more time to react if the wind does suddenly gust. Note now how he's being patient allowing the boat to move slowly, letting the wind work for him and not putting in large amounts of power and rudder when he doesn't need to. It's become apparent that even more line is needed, so another adjustment's about to be done. The wind stopped veering and now it's back along the trot, but that's no problem. Rob's just going to reposition by putting the bow parallel to the direction he wants the stern to go in and then going back astern again, and that will bring the stern back towards the buoy. While he's sorting that stern line out, his helm's just letting the boat drift back towards my bow, so at one point he will end up reaching out and fending off by pushing against my anchor. There he goes. Didn't touch anything, didn't do any harm. He was just having to keep an eye while he was doing the rope work. Once he's got that stern line secured, he'll go forward and take up the slack on the bow line, and they're all set. From the shore, yeah, it might have taken a long time to do this, but at no time did he risk hitting my boat, and he certainly didn't risk getting close to it with any way on at any time. So a nice job, Rob, and nice to meet you. It can be done even in tricky conditions, and Rob and I were talking about this later, and we agreed that it might be necessary to hang your stern into the wind and have the bow pointing towards the camera in this shot so that you're across the trot. Put the bow line on. I would do it at the shrouds so that I can see what's going on, and then once that line's on with a nice long line, back away and let the wind blow you back round towards the boat behind you, and just use the engine to avoid going too close by going forward if you need to, and at the same time the other crewman can focus on picking up the pickup buoy. Hope you found that helpful. Please hit subscribe, hit like, hit the bell icon and help us grow the channel.